And before you go, don't forget to support the channel, hit like, press subscribe, and join the Kindness Journey Hub family. Together, let's spread more kindness, more compassion, and more real stories that remind us we're not alone. Single dad cries at his ex-wife's grave, not knowing she's alive and watching him. The rain had no mercy that afternoon. It fell in sheets, drenching the cemetery, turning the ground to soft mud, making the sky look as if it, too, were grieving. And in the middle of it all stood Daniel Hayes, soaked, trembling, and clutching a bouquet of white lilies that looked too fragile for the storm. He had not cried in years, not even during the long nights of balancing single fatherhood and endless shifts, but today, on the 3rd anniversary of his ex-wife's death, his tears came without restraint. What he did not know, what he could not have imagined, was that just a short distance away, hidden behind a cluster of towering oak trees, a woman watched him with shaking breath and a hand pressed against her heart. A woman with the same dark hair, the same green eyes. A woman who should have been in the earth where he believed she lay. His ex-wife. Lily. Daniel knelt by the gravestone, his knees sinking into the wet ground. He didn't care. Nothing felt heavy anymore except the ache in his chest. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have fought harder. I should have saved you." His fingers traced the engraved name, Lily and Hayes, and he forced back a sob. For years, he had rehearsed what he would say if he ever had a second chance. But there were no second chances. Not for her. Not for them. At least, that's what he believed. Behind the trees, Lily covered her mouth as her eyes flooded. She had seen him broken before, but never like this, never so undone that she felt the urge to run to him, to hold him until the storm quieted. But she couldn't. She wasn't supposed to be alive. And if she stepped out now, everything she had endured, everything she had sacrificed, would unravel. Yet her heart longed for him, longed for the man she had once loved enough to leave. The truth was complicated. 3 years ago, she hadn't died the way he had been told. Instead, she had disappeared into a world she never wanted to enter. She had been forced into witness protection after uncovering dangerous secrets at the company where she worked, secrets that had put her life, and her family's, in immediate jeopardy. The authorities told her she had one option: vanish. Disappear. Let the world believe she was gone forever. And most excruciating of all, cut ties with Daniel and their son, Theo, who was only 7 then. She refused at first. She begged. She cried. She fought with every ounce of strength she had. But in the end, the threat was too real, too imminent. If she stayed, they would be targets. If she left, they would be safe. So she walked away from everything and everyone she loved. Daniel never knew the truth. No one did. Now, 3 years later, the danger had finally passed. The men responsible were behind bars. The investigation had closed. The people monitoring her case told her she was free to return to her old life, to the family that had mourned her. But freedom felt heavier than imprisonment. Because how do you return to people who have lived through your death? How do you walk back into a story you let them believe was finished? As Daniel placed the flowers at her grave, his shoulders shook. "Theo misses you," he whispered. "He tries to act strong, but he wakes up crying some nights. He asks why you didn't say goodbye. I never know what to tell him." He closed his eyes, letting the rain mix with his tears. "And I miss you too. I miss you every day." Lily clutched the tree trunk to steady herself. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but reality hurt far more. She didn't know he visited the grave every month. She didn't know he brought fresh flowers, or that he talked to her as though she could hear him. The guilt felt like a physical weight crushing her. She wished she could run to him right now, fall to her knees, and say the words she had held for so long: "I never wanted to leave. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped loving our son." But she stayed hidden. Because she was still afraid, not of the danger, but of his pain, of Theo's confusion, of the broken trust she would have to face. When Daniel finally stood, he lingered longer than usual, his hand resting on the top of the gravestone as though reluctant to let her go a second time. Then he sighed and whispered, "Goodbye, Lily. He turned and began walking toward the cemetery gates, unaware that the woman he mourned watched his every step. Lily waited until he disappeared from sight before sinking to the ground, sobbing into her hands. She had returned home a week earlier and had been watching Daniel and Theo from a distance, driven by love, crippled by fear. She saw how Daniel worked 2 jobs to keep their lives afloat. She saw how Theo, now 10, had grown taller but still carried sadness in his smile. She saw how the house felt emptier without her laughter filling the rooms. But every time she thought of approaching them, something stopped her. Would they even want her back? Daniel had every reason to hate her. And Theo? Theo might not even remember the feeling of her arms around him. The thought broke her. Over the next week, Lily followed them quietly, never too close, always in the background like a ghost who refused to fade. She watched Daniel pack Theo's lunch every morning, watched him give pep talks before school, watched him juggle exhaustion and devotion like a man fueled entirely by love. And she watched Theo, sweet, gentle Theo, who carried his mother's old keychain on his backpack as if it were a treasure. Lily's heart swelled and shattered every time she saw it, but the breaking point came one evening when she saw Daniel sitting on the porch steps after putting Theo to bed. He looked tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that didn't just come from long hours but from years of emotional weight. He held a mug of coffee in his hands, staring out into the dark yard as though searching for answers he would never find. Lily watched from across the street, hidden behind the shadows. And for the first time since she left, she realized something painfully clear: Daniel wasn't just grieving her absence. He was grieving the life they lost together. The family they once were. That night, Lily made a decision. She couldn't hide anymore. She couldn't let her fear punish them. She hadn't survived everything just to become a ghost in the lives she cherished. It was time to return, no matter the consequences. The next morning, Daniel rushed around the kitchen preparing breakfast while Theo rummaged through his backpack for a missing worksheet. It was a normal morning, chaotic and busy, the way their home always was. Then came the knock on the door. Daniel frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door, and froze. There she was, Lily. Alive. Her hair was shorter, her cheeks thinner, but her eyes, those familiar green eyes, held the same warmth and depth he had memorized. She stood on the porch with trembling hands clasped to her chest, rainwater from the night before still clinging to her coat. Daniel's breath left him in a broken gasp. Lily," he whispered, his voice barely a sound. Her eyes filled instantly. "Hi, Daniel," she said softly. I'm home." The world tilted beneath him. His body wavered. For a moment, he didn't know if he should reach for her or shut the door, scream or collapse. 1,000 emotions crashed at once: shock, anger, grief, love, confusion. But before he could process any of them, a small voice called from behind him. "Dad? Who is it?" Daniel's heart pounded. He turned slightly. Theo stood in the hallway, clutching his backpack straps, curious and sleepy-eyed. Lily's breath hitched. She covered her mouth, tears rushing forward. Theo blinked. His gaze drifted from his father to the woman on the porch. "Dad," he repeated, softer this time. Why does she look like Mom?" Lily broke. She knelt on the porch, her tears falling freely now. "Theo," she whispered. "Baby, it's me. It's Mom." Daniel felt his knees weaken. Theo stared, frozen, confusion twisting his face. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. One step. Then another. Until he stood in front of her, his small hands trembling. But you died," he whispered, voice quivering. Lily shook her head, sobbing. "No, sweetheart. I didn't die. I had to go away to keep you safe. I never wanted to leave. I missed you every single day." Theo's lip trembled. His eyes filled. Then he threw himself into her arms with a cry that ripped through Daniel's heart. "Mom," he sobbed into her neck. "Don't leave again. Please don't leave again." Lily held him tightly, her own sobs shaking her body. "Never," she choked. "Never again. I'm home for good." Daniel watched them, his emotions a storm he couldn't name. relief, anger, love, betrayal, hope. It was too much. He leaned against the doorframe, trying to steady himself as the woman he mourned held their son in the embrace he thought he'd never see again. But Lily eventually looked up at him. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Daniel swallowed hard, his jaw trembling. "You let me believe you were dead," he said, his voice raw. "You let him believe you were dead." "I know," she whispered. "And I'll explain everything. If you'll let me." Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Fragile. Real. Daniel finally nodded, slow, hesitant, but real. "Come inside," he said quietly. The next few hours were a blur of explanations, tears, questions, and long pauses. Lily told them everything, about the danger, the threats, the witness protection program, the restrictions, the years of longing. Daniel listened, his heart conflicting with itself. Part of him understood. Part of him didn't know how to forgive. Theo clung to her the entire time. When she finished explaining, the house fell silent. Lily's hand shook as she waited for Daniel to speak. He stared at the floor, his voice barely audible when he finally found it. "I don't know how to feel," he admitted. "I loved you. I still care for you. But I also spent 3 years grieving you. Raising our son alone. Talking to a gravestone." Lily's tears came again, softer this time. "I know you owe me nothing," she whispered. "But I'm here now. And I want to make things right. With both of you." The days that followed were difficult. Healing wasn't instant. Daniel struggled with trust. Lily struggled with guilt. Theo struggled with fear of losing her again. But slowly, they found moments of laughter again. Lily cooked Theo's favorite meals. Daniel taught her the routines she had missed. They talked late into the night, not as husband and wife, but as two people trying to rebuild something broken. One evening, weeks later, Daniel found himself standing outside, staring at the sky. Lily joined him quietly. "Do you regret coming back?" he asked. She shook her head. "No. The only regret I have is leaving in the first place. But I'd rather spend the rest of my life earning forgiveness than spend another day hiding." Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, the grief he carried for 3 years loosened. "You're here now," he said softly. "That's what matters." Time healed wounds. Trust returned in small pieces. Love rekindled slowly, tenderly, not rushed, not forced. And as the months passed, Daniel realized something he had ignored for too long. Lily wasn't just the woman he lost. She was the woman who fought to protect their family, even when it cost her everything. On the anniversary of her death, they returned to the cemetery together. Daniel placed new flowers on the gravestone that no longer needed to exist. Lily held his hand, tears in her eyes. "I'm ready to start over," she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Then let's start." And for the first time in years, he felt peace. The past had shaped them, tested them, broken them. But it had not defeated them. Their story wasn't one of loss, it was one of resilience, forgiveness, and a love strong enough to survive even death itself. And when they walked away from that gravestone hand in hand, they walked toward a future rebuilt not from what they had been, but from who they had become. A reminder to anyone watching their story unfold: even the deepest heartbreak can heal. Even the longest separations can end. And sometimes, life gives back what you thought was lost forever.